Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we are going into our next part on how to play Magic the Gathering. It's been a while since I've spoke, but I've already done lands, I've done planeswalkers, um, and creatures. I've done sorceries, instants, and interrupts. Today we are going to talk about enchantments. Now, enchantments have kind of gone over a bit of a revamp. They used to say on them, like in this one, just enchantment, or they would say enchant creature, enchant artifact, enchant land. You could only play enchantments during your turn. So, when it was your phase, that's the only time you could cast enchantments, even if it affected other people's um, creatures, um, artifacts, land, whatever. You could only cast them on your turn because they were considered permanent effects, permanent spells, and would stay active so long as the card was on the field. Now they've kind of changed the game a bit. There's enchantment aura, and then down there you see it says enchant creature. I believe the aura has like singular targets from what I'm seeing. So yeah, in this case, enchant creature. In this case, enchant player. There's enchant creature again. So I guess the aura just is to enchant a singular thing. I thought it was easier when they just said enchantment, enchant creature, enchant artifact, enchant land. It made pretty simple sense. I don't know why they needed to add aura to those that enchanted singular objects. Who knows? But in this case, let's say your opponent has out the Delver of the Dead. Which is a 3/2 creature. So, when it dies, return target creature with converted mana cost 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. They may be trying to attack with this to bring back a small creature with an amazing effect, because that does happen in the game. Sometimes you can get a small creature, 1/1 or 0/2 or something like that, that comes in that's very small, but their effect is wonderful. And so you don't want them to access that graveyard to bring in that creature again. So instead of killing it, you can smack that uh, necrolep, narcolepsy. Can't talk. You could smack narcolepsy on there, and it forces the Delver of the Dead to stay tapped. Cannot be untapped. I think that's what it says. Oh, at the beginning of each upkeep, if the enchanted creature is untapped, tap it. So, essentially, it would keep it tapped, but it would get tapped. If they had something that could untap it, that's fine. But at the start of their very next turn, untap, upkeep, plink, it goes back into the tap. So they could untap it, but it would require mana or sacrifice of a creature, some kind of cost. So with that enchantment, you could basically keep it from doing damage. Let's see. But then you have other enchantments which are more based on the play of the game. This says enchantment, sacrifice the vessel of ephemera. Put 2 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So the enchantment stays onto the battlefield. You pay the mana cost, which is 2 and 1 white, and sacrifice the enchantment, putting it into your graveyard. All of a sudden, you have 2 1/1 white flying tokens on the battlefield. So, yeah. But what else do we have here? Jace's Erasure. It's a pretty classic card. Whenever you draw a card, you may have target player put the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. So for each card you draw, well, not each card, but when you draw a card, you may have target player put their top card of their library in their graveyard. So they can't even draw it off their library. Um, and of course, it's target player, so you can even do it to yourself. Technically, you could target yourself. Here's an enchant player. At the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, that player puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into the graveyard. And this is a enchantment curse aura. Curse of the Bloody Tome. Now this is it doesn't say enchant player, it just says whenever an opponent discards a card, Magrim deals 2 damage to that player. So any opponent you have that draws or discards a card, you can have Magrim deal 2 damage to them. Sometimes you can face multiple opponents. Usually, in most games, it'll be one-on-one. But you can sometimes be having multiple opponent games. 3, 4, 5 people in a game. I know sometimes some friends and I used to play games of Magic around a table, and there'd be about 4 of us in a game. Each man for themselves. So it really depends on what the card says. If it says each opponent, target player, target opponent, so you do have to pay attention to what the card functions say. But again, these effects stay in effect until that enchantment is removed. Now, like I said, there are also cards that enchant just artifacts and enchant just land. Like, say, with this right here, the Warped Landscape. Say, you wanted to put an enchantment on it. I'm trying to think of the one where it affects land. I'm wanting to say Phantasmal Terrain. With Phantasmal Terrain, you can change the color to any color of your choice. Now, of course, this one is colorless. It has no specific color that it focuses on. Red, green, white, blue, black. This one, it just add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can sacrifice and search your library for a basic land card. Now, but let's say it was green. If it was a forest that produces green mana, or a multicolor land that produces one of whatever is the combination, like some produce blue and white, some produce red and green, different combinations like that. You could say, all right, we're going to change this into a mountain, which means it can only produce red mana. So it's no longer a forest. So it no longer produces green mana. You've now um, tapped an enchantment onto it. And it's usually, I'm just putting them behind there because that's how we've always shown enchantments on cards. But you can just put them on behind the card and it shows what enchantment is on it. If you want to, you always have the ability to read the cards so you can try to find out, remind yourself of what ability is on it. That's something you can always do. I think you have to let them know I'm just looking to see what the ability is. Or you can just ask them, say, what is the enchantment placed on the card? What does it do to the card? But like I said, there's also enchantments that focus on you can only place on artifacts. Um, which they can do several things to the artifact. Give them ability to become creatures or lower the casting the spell costs that they have on the artifact or something like that. Tap the artifact. So yeah. And that is more or less enchantments and what they do. Um, so I guess we have what? Tokens and artifacts left? So I guess that's what we'll kind of look at in the next video on how to play Magic. But remember, always educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. But I'll see you all again in the next video. Until then, later.